What's up, tea drinkers? Who's ready to spill? Welcome to The Tea with KG, hosted by your girl, Kaylee Grace. Here you'll find your weekly boost of real talk mixed with laughter, healing, and all of those vulnerable, messy moments in between. The Tea with KG is a safe space for you to show up exactly as you are. We are here to share real-life stories from around the globe and be a community of love, joy, and celebrating life. This is a real deal show, so there will be coarse language and sensitive topics discussed. The most beautiful stories oftentimes emerge from the darkest of places, and we're here to explore it all. There's room for everyone at this tea time, so grab your drink of choice, spark it up, or just relax and soak it up. Cheers, and let's spill. What's up, tea drinkers? We are back with another episode of The Tea with KG. I'm your host, Kaylee Grace, and I have another amazing guest joining me this week, the lovely and talented Gypsy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Gypsy is my hairstylist here in Vancouver. That's how her and I connected. And upon meeting, it was just very natural. We were like, okay, this is a good connection. Again, just one of those soul connections where it just felt right. And it's so nice because when I was coming here, I was brand new. I didn't know anyone. So I found her Citrus Hair Salon and I was like, okay, book me in. And they booked me with Gypsy and I'm so happy they did. So can't wait to have our conversation today.
Yeah, what's really cool about my studio is they're sort of trained to try to fit people, not just who's going to be the best stylist for the task and the service, but also personality wise. And did they ever nail this one? It was like we both knew right from second one that we were like, you know, we just have that connection that you just don't always have with everybody. And I felt it. Yes, I always love our hair dates. And
yes,
into it. So yeah.
Oh, it's so good. And it's so true. And when we met was like when the COVID rules were a little bit more intense. So we couldn't hug each other. And both of us were like, I just want to give you a hug.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's been great. And yeah, just super, super grateful to have you on with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So we'll start with the who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm a crazy girl, I guess, that just came from small town Saskatchewan and had, they felt like big dreams for me. Maybe they're average dreams for somebody, but I'm basically living them now. I'm from rural Saskatchewan. I spent most of 20 years in Calgary. We moved here to Vancouver about 5.5 years ago, and I work at Citrus Hair Salon. And I am married and have a zoo. I call it a zoo. Parrots and one dog. So if you're hearing things, that's them.
They're chiming in.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, they're the best. Everybody knows Benson. He's always in the background of my podcast. He's like, hey.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. So I guess we'll dive right into it. Let's hear your story because I know from us sitting and chatting, you definitely have a story. We've talked about so many different topics. And yeah, let's learn more about you, girl.
Okay, so yeah, it's quite the story. And I'm not sad about it. Sorry, that was an alarm telling me this. So yeah, I'm no longer sad about my story. Because it's helping so many people. And I was just mentioning, like, I did a recently another, well, actually the interview, the podcast was, I did another interview of a podcast in January that just got released. And so it's interesting that I'm like doing another, asked to do another one. And I'll just say now, if there's any bits that I am like, oh, I talked more about that on the other podcast, if anyone wants to hear that one, you can DM me and I'll send you the link because I go into a lot of different bits. So basically, I mean, I think I've taken a look through the images on Instagram of your podcast, and I'm like definitely probably one of the older ones you're interviewing. So 44 years old. Point being, I've got a lot of story. I kind of figured the two main most important aspects of my life are kind of where I have had the most growth and seen the most growth and been part of why I had the most growth and just all the things. And so that would be for me, God first, then my husband next. And I think both of those things and where I've come from and where I've gone to, and I'm still learning and growing that those things I think will be interesting and helpful to this audience, and I hope so, because I know already my story has helped a lot of people. So
Absolutely, girl. I can't wait. I mean, I already have a little bit of an inside scoop, but I'm sure there's more that I haven't even heard. I'm so excited. So, yeah, that's the thing. Like, this is all just, we keep it real, we share, because that's how we connect as a humankind in a world, and we know we're not alone in what we've experienced, because sometimes certain things can be very isolating, and it's like you think, oh my god, it's just me, and it's not. Like, that's what I love about sharing everyone's stories, because we're just bringing everyone together and we're just walking each other home, and that's it. So I love it.
100%. And I feel like things have come such a long way since I was younger. I've always been the type that to just say it like it is. I don't really I hold back, really. I've always just super genuine and super real and super raw and honest, and that wasn't really always wanted. I am really appreciated the past, I would say maybe 10 years, where having a more of an openness to life struggles, the reality of life, the difficulty and the things that come from trauma and abuse and stuff like that, that mostly we're all more open to talking about it. Because let me tell you, back in the 80s, 90s, in the early 2000s, people la 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 la, like they don't want to hear.
100%.
They just don't want to.
It's so true. It's so true, because like I grew up in the 90s era, and like I can totally relate to that. And I've said that so many times with other guests. I'm like, this was not talked about when we grew up. It just wasn't. And I'm so happy that now we are shedding light on so many topics, because it's just truth. That's it. It's truth, and that's it. So.
And I'll pre-warn, I didn't wear eye makeup. I'm a very emotional, passionate person, and if I cry, I'm fine. Knocks me out and says I cry like every day, which is probably true. Yeah, because I'm passionate about where I've come from and where I'm going and how I got there. I'm touched by my own story. I feel a lot, and so if tears come, that's just how I roll.
Oh, preach, girl. We're all about the feels.
So I guess what started my life, straight up full on abuse. So yeah, let's just dive right into it. Yes. This could be trigger warnings, all of this. If you need,
we'll just throw it out there now.
And again, I've always just said it all like it is. So I'm hold back now. And the reason I don't is, especially these days, again, is because there are people that can relate. And man, if I can be like, that's why I've always said, and I've said to so many clients and so many people I talk to, if I can be the one person that I never had, because I didn't feel like I had anybody that went through what I went through, and I'm sure they were out there. They just
exactly.
About it. And if I can be like one person that someone's like, oh my goodness, like she went through that and she is like, living in victory, and she's living in some healing, like, oh, okay, that can give me hope, because damn it, I spent so many years suicidal, and I want to be somebody that maybe other, like, that I want to be someone to people that I just felt like I never really had.
Yes. Oh, you're giving me goosebumps. Yes.
Yeah. My life started off with an interesting forms of abuse, and I'll just dive right in there and be straight up and honest. And again, I know that there's going to be people relating to this. I grew up with all forms of abuse, except for maybe being locked in a closet and unfed. I know people that have had that, and so it wasn't to that degree, but it was all other forms. And I will say, including spiritual abuse, that was a new one to me. I had a therapist, my main therapist of my life, who was a Christian man, didn't advertise as that, but he was. And when he just saying the word spiritual abuse, I was like, oh, just that term, and the fact that he said it, because I knew exactly what he meant when he said it, and I didn't even know it existed, and I didn't even know that's what it was. When he said that all of a sudden just brought healing to me, coming from a Christian man, right? Especially. And so I grew up with what I used to call crazy Christians, the whole family on both sides, but I now call it evil Christianity, and it does exist. And there is not evil Christianity. This is the one I feel like, I mean, we're all flawed, but this is the one I feel like I'm living out today. But that's what I grew up with. So things like, you can't swear, but we're going to sexually abuse you behind closed doors.
Oh my God.
You can't listen to this type of music, but we'll beat you behind closed doors. So these things that literally were like so evil, so horrible, all in the name of Christianity or whatever. Some very flawed parents, and some had gone through their own trauma, which I didn't even really take that into, like, just sort of understanding their trauma, and then they tried to parent at such a young age. That in itself has been more healing to me over the past couple of years, to like just have it dawn on me, oh my goodness, like they went through what they went through. Imagine, I don't have to, and I thank God every day I don't, because I feel like I would have, for many years, I don't think it would be like that now. Not that I'm perfect, but for many years, I'm sure I would have just continued the abuse cycle. So they just didn't have the strength, you know, to do what needed to be done, and they didn't have the wherewithal and the capacity. And so that was helpful in my forgiveness. But there's so many rabbit trails of my story. It's hard to stay focused and concentrated. Interrupt me to kind of keep me on.
Oh no, I was gonna say, I love that you are like, thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing that deep trauma, because I know it's a lot. So I just want to put that out there, express my gratitude, because like I'm getting emotional listening, because I know how powerful that is. And I like some of the terminology you're using, because like I've never heard that before, spiritual abuse. But once you said it, I knew what it meant as well. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. My brain, squirrel brains too. I was like, what? I had another thought I wanted to say. Oh, and I also love with your growth how you're viewing your parents as their own people with their own trauma, because that's a challenging thing to do. And I think it's very key in the healing process. And you get to a point where eventually we see that. And I just think that shows how strong you are and how far you've come in your growth. And I just want to commend you for that, because it's amazing.
I know that and for anyone listening that's on their own path of healing, I want to make a point in that I don't think there's a certain amount of healing that has to come before you can even approach and get to that point where you can see, people that traumatized me may have and likely had their own. Don't get to that place until you get there. You cannot. Your healing, you can't go faster than your own wherewithal and capacity can allow you, and so don't feel like, oh well, she did it, how trust me, it took me years. I was 42, I would say, when I no the first time that was my true freedom story time. I was released from like literal demonic stronghold, had a whole exorcist hour. That part, again, I may touch on some more of it now, but that part is really dived into a lot on the other podcast if anyone wants to listen. True freedom from all the things that live in hate, so rage, anxiety, all the fear stuff, suicidal tendencies, unforgiveness, like all of these things. That's why I was released from that on that. I don't, bloody exorcist hour, that's what I call it. Like it was like very like movements happening, like Satan was here, God was here. It was a full spiritual battle.
Wow.
Anyway, that is dived into in the other one a little more, but I felt strongly to talk to other things on this one that that one, and so I want to make time for that. But yes, that's kind of where that came from. But yes, that was the first dawning I had. It was in that prayer, that freedom prayer moment, where I was like, oh my goodness, I feel strongly that my birth father, who was my sexual abuser and largely my abuser, I mean, my mother perpetuated it and kept me in it, but that was like my real abuser. And I was like, I just knew all of a sudden which was confirmed later, he himself went through all the same. And that broke me in a good way.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so emotional about it
Do
because
you? Oh my gosh, of course. Let it out, honey. I feel like it humanizes the abuser sometimes. Like when you realize, oh, okay, they went through this too. And again, it's not excusing behavior. I just want to throw that out there. I will never
no,
excuse abusive behavior
no,
because I have been abused as well, and it's not okay. It's never
yeah,
okay. We all go through trauma. How you react is up to you. And I won't I won't say
yeah,
that abuse is ever okay because it's not. But in the healing process, these things are necessary to
yeah,
look at your abuser. Because I've
exactly.
done the same. I'm like, I knew this person had a very tough upbringing, but I'm like, I found what it did for me sometimes was I made excuses for him because I knew how hard he had it. And like, that's not good either. Like, you can't make excuses for your abuser. They're still doing things that are not okay. So I definitely understand.
It's so crazy how like in tune we are with each other because that's
Right?
exactly like it's not excusable, but what it does become is important in your own healing to get to at some point be able to get to that point where you can see, like I just started to, that's when I really started to feel actually more sorry than hate,
Yeah.
more um I guess even compassion instead of um just full like unforgiveness and stuff. And so it really shifted things for me in that way to be able to have it softened my heart
Yeah.
towards them. And that's the thing is real healing is going to mean that hate doesn't exist, right? Not that you don't have to battle that every bloody day and every minute. Like
Yep.
things still come at you, and you do have to battle them. But hate, um, yeah, we cannot find like true forgiveness is part of it. So
Yes.
that absolutely help in that form of healing. Again, not mentioning it or getting to that place because of condoning it, but for your own healing sake. So it's very, very,
Yeah. And I love too that you said, Gypsy, how it took you a long ass time to get there. Cause same, like there are still some times where, and don't be hard on yourself. If it takes you time, it's okay. Healing is not linear. I say that all the time. It's like this. It is not all the way up, straight up. Here we go. It's like, it's messy. And like you might take 2 steps forward and then 5 back. Like it, and that's okay. Allow yourself that compassion and grace because it doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're not strong. You're a strong, badass bitch. Like you got this. Like it's okay. And sitting with your pain, that was a big breakthrough for me too, was like actually allowing myself to sit with it and not numb it, not go do something else with it. And it helps you get better at releasing it, I find. For me, it did anyway. It took time, but it's like anything in life, right? The more you practice something, it gets better with time.
yeah, absolutely. It's just interesting to me because when I had that freedom, I call it my freedom story. And when I was 40, and again,
Freedom 40.
hey, I didn't even ever think about.
Yeah.
And again, there's like way more detail about that on that other podcast if anyone wants to hear. It's really powerful. I literally had like a miracle, a physical miracle, and in it all, and not just like a spiritual miracle. And it's really, I really recommend DM me if you want to hear that story. But
Yeah.
I felt for, I guess it was like 3 solid years, I'm free of that. And yes, I am. But this past year challenged it. Let me tell you,
Mm.
I was faced with all of the same things and so much of the past year in like 600 different rabbit trail ways triggered
Wow.
my childhood trauma, my adulthood trauma, um, all of it. And spiritual trauma, all of it. And I thought, oh, I guess I wasn't freed after all. No, I was. God did free me. But it doesn't mean that things, like you say, it's up and down. It doesn't mean that things that don't like come into, I remember a therapist said to me one time, like, there's going to be big events in your life that will basically ignite needing more healing and going further.
Yes.
Like, okay, what does she mean? She just mentioned the main ones like marriage and death and maybe having a child or what name you or what have you. But like this past year, like for a lot of us, the past 2.5 years, I don't know, what is it, approaching 3 years now? I don't even know.
Right.
It couldn't have guessed, that therapist couldn't have guessed like, oh, this worldwide thing that's going on, like, but it did. And the
Hmm.
great news is that And when I talk about the two main things, I wanted to talk about God and my husband. The great thing is that because of God and my husband, I actually lived in victory. Even though I was faced with those things, I lived in victory this year. It took me to my knees a few times, and I had to do work. I had to do a lot of work with God. But right now, I sit here and I can tell you I'm feeling like I'm coming on the other side of that. And yes, I did have further healing because of it.
Yeah.
Not even in spite of it, but like because of it, right? So, and so anyway, to go back to the story, I grew up with all this trauma, all this abuse, and immediately that sent me running the other direction from these people that were participating in what I call evil Christianity, whether their intentions were good or not. And I do believe a lot of them, their intentions were good. It wasn't coming out good. I mean, Satan has more work, and he does more work in Christian circles, I feel like, sometimes than in the rest of the world. And for me, that was no different. So I ended up going down a path that was trying to find, because I wasn't getting love there,
Yeah.
right? God, to be honest, I was shown a flawed God, because you're preaching one thing but then acting a different. I mean, and no human's perfect. I certainly, now I'll say, I am not a good Christian. I believe there's no such thing. I'm horrible. I'm terrible. I am whatever. But that's why I need God in order to.
Yeah, I'm very spiritual. Like, I feel like in life, like, no matter which way you break it down, no matter what you look to as your higher power, there's right and there's wrong, there's good and there's bad, and it doesn't matter which way you spin it, it's still wrong. Like, even like, so I know what you mean in that sense. Like, just in looking at like the good and bad, and like when you're saying like the evil Christianity, I totally know what you mean there. And it's like bringing up so many things that I've seen throughout life, just like these people that preach and they talk the talk, but they're not walking the walk of what it means to be. To me, it's just about being a good human. Like,
yeah, a lot of that comes down to the agape love thing, which I would love to touch on, because that also is what helped my marriage, which is our third marriage. So I'll get to that. But what ended up happening throughout that is I went into this deep dive into other things, which actually led me to further anxiety, depression. Like it looked like, oh, the light, it was just all things sex, anything, all things thirsty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All things like trying to get my attention and get my, that fill that space in here and get it from fill it. And
I call that like numbing my pain, because I feel like I went through something similar and I was numbing my pain with, like, drinking, partying, sex, dabbling in different things. Like, yeah.
And it really, it led me down a path that actually led to more of the things that I was trying to escape from. Thing about that road. And I feel like just bringing up this concept right now, because it's something important to me, that like when it dawned on me, I was like, wow, okay. So I was running from all that because of the people. God. So I still had God in my life in a very real way, but I just said, sorry, but we're going to have a dysfunctional relationship like all the relationships I have unless you fix it, which he ended up, is working on still, but ended up doing. Just took a long time. And also I ended up just getting to the point where I realized we can't throw out the chicken, because there's flawed humans throwing eggs at me. So that was because, like, God does not intend for this to be this way with many people. These people are just as flawed as the next person, and they are just as easy and just as susceptible to hurting people as any. And so we automatically look to humans and then say, oh, I'm not going to be a part of that. But in this case, I mean, God doesn't mean for any of that to happen. So I just realized, yeah, and I always stuck with that, I guess, is that I'm not going to throw out the chicken. I'm just going to distance myself from those damn egg throwers, you know?
Boundaries. Yeah.
That one's a really, really big one for me, because I guess that was what inevitably, because I walked away from the church, I walked away from those Christians, and I was embarrassed of Christianity. I was never embarrassed of God. I was embarrassed of the term Christianity, Christian. So I would like God close to my heart, but not really talk about it much or whatever, because I was embarrassed. But ever since my freedom story, I'm like, and because I still lived in a bit of embarrassment, because this term Christian Christians have made, like, Christians have embarrassed Jesus. Christians have embarrassed, you know. So I just realized, well, I'm one of them too, right? I've hurt people. I know I'm certainly perfect. And so I just got to that point where I'm like, actually, I can't be embarrassed of that which freed me. I can't be embarrassed of that which like completely took me, because I always, when I wrote poetry, it was always like, I'm drowning. I'm caged, drowning. And that's how I felt, just drowning in life. And like, I can't be ashamed of anything that freed me from that. I can't.
Right.
So I'm not anymore. And yeah, people, including myself, have made a bad name for God. But I'm still going to talk about him anyway, because I cannot be ashamed for that which brought me to where I am.
Yeah.
And that whole chicken and the egg thing was
a great analogy, by the way.
I feel like God gave me that one, because I'm trying to explain to somebody because it's very easy to be like, that's bad, staying away from that, staying away from that damn thing. I get it, dude. I like, you know, I get it. But I tried everything, and this is the only thing that actually really worked. I tried besides drugs, because like I just knew I would go from there to like hell hero with drugs. I never tried that, but I tried literally pretty much everything to get rid of anxiety and depression and suicidal tendencies and just complete rage and hate. And the only thing that worked for me was God freeing me in an exorcist hour prayer that just, I was different. My husband even was like, I don't know what this God stuff, blah, blah, blah. But then when he saw in me, and he saw that was the marker in time of what happened there, he's now a total Jesus believer because of like what happened to me. So I just want to throw that out there, because everybody has a choice to make with that in life. And if you don't want to make that choice, that's like, you know, that's between you and God. But I tried everything. If you've tried everything and nothing worked, hey man, give this a go. That's all I'm saying. Give it a go. That's all I'm saying, because it really worked for me. And again, I went through like such a difficult year. And that is what, of all the times I felt suicidal, I think this past year would have probably taken me down again if I didn't have. And so for me, again, these are the two top things, and they're the ones that I want to touch on in this. So I went down that bad path that led to more up until that point when I was 40, and that happened. But I want to reverse just a sec, because coming to that second major point, which is full in rabbit trails. How do I word this? Like, my second point is my husband, who is my third, and I'm also his third marriage. And but the reason our relationship got to where it is has complete full rabbit trails coming from God. That's why I like put it that way to that way.
Yeah.
The hierarchy of what's most important to the next important. And so when I met him, it was 11 years ago. And
wow.
And it was crazy, because I mean, my second husband had just left, and the way we met was just insane and weird, and we knew it was like divine timing.
I love when that happens.
Really, like 100% the details surrounding it. Like, we could have so easily just not been in the same place at the same time, but we were in the same place at the same time. And our relationship, because we both come from trauma, and had 2 failed marriages, and I will say that we feel strongly that the actual end of those marriages wasn't like on our plate, you know?
Right.
Let's be real. It takes 2 to tango, as they say, and we were not perfect. And I think one of the bigger reasons we've always said that we ended up working was because you inevitably, after 2 failed marriages, you start to do a little bit more of like, hey, what am I doing wrong here? You know,
Yeah.
these people are all horrible. And it starts to make you look inward. And that really started to, because we were tumultuous, we had the highs of highs of highs, and then for the first 2 years, and then we had the lows of lows of lows, like properly lows. And I was just like, I just remember saying to him, we were in the car, and I just remember saying, we've got to figure out how to get more like the lows be kind of like here. Highs can stay where they are, but we got to bridge the gap here somewhere. We got to figure out how to do it. And the incredible thing is that the real end up way, I mean, it definitely got better after my freedom story, because what happened during that time is I switched getting my full attention and needs first from him, because that's a job he can't even do. He cannot fill my needs. He cannot be everything. He cannot fill that gaping hole that
Exactly.
I put God first for that, and that will really repair our marriage in another whole new level, because I wasn't relying on him for things that he's not even intended to do. He can't do. He doesn't have the tools to do. He's an imperfect human. I'm not going to be able to that kind of area in my life internally filled by a human. It's just not going to happen. And so anyway, it went to a deeper level after that. But near the beginning, in the first couple of years, what's crazy is I unknowingly began to implement this concept of agape love. And I'll talk about that. This is a fun one, because I got to the point where I said to him, because I saw how things were going, and I just saw we both had issues. We both, again, the highs were amazing, the lows were way too low. And I remember saying to him, I just had this dawning on me, and I now know I was implementing agape love. I said, you know what I'm going to do? And I told him, I don't want you to respond now. I'm going to speak, don't respond. But I'm going to start a new way of pursuing things and doing things and moving forward with this relationship. I'm going to focus. I want to stop here and say, if someone's abusing you, like properly abusing you, and so walk. I'm not talking about that stuff.
No.
That aren't really like going well. You're not seeing eye to eye. I just said,
it's like the healthy it's not, what Gypsy's saying, she's not saying like abuse, that kind of thing. It's like, I don't want to use the word normal, because that's not the right word, but it's not abusive tendencies is what she's referring to.
When there's abuse, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, what's the other one? Like any of the sexual, like get out, walk now.
Yep.
No. My mother said, trust me, go, leave, go. But the stuff that's just like, you're just I said to him, I'm going to treat you like a king. And this is where it came from. People who know us well know we call each other king and queen.
I like that.
I said, I'm going to, from now on, start pointing my finger at myself. And I'm not going to point it at you. And I'll just hope you do the same. And I'm just going to start to treat you like a king. And I'm just going to see where this goes. And I said, and I don't want a response. So he didn't respond. And for 3 did not return the whole finger pointing.
Taking accountability. I love that. I just want to jump in, because like I love what you were saying earlier about the taking accountability. And you also were like saying how you're not going to look to him to fulfill what you need. And I think everyone listening, any healthy relationship, don't look to your partner to be everything, because they're never going to be everything. You have to be whole on your own, and then you can just enhance each other. That's to me, a healthy relationship. You're enhancing each other in good ways. And yes, of course, there's going to be ups and downs. That's normal. But I like that you said that about not looking to him to fulfill everything. And I think that's very wise. And also owning your shit. I'm huge on that. I'm like, look to yourself. Be like, okay, what am I doing here, if anything? Because it's not always like that. And then you can progress further. So really, really love those 2 points you made.
Yeah, those are really huge points. And again, it took me I didn't even meet my husband until I believe I was 33 or something like that. And so imagine that's like the age I was, and I'm only just at that time just starting to. So again, some of these younger give yourself time, just keep trying, right? Just keep trying. You're not going to get it right all the time. I still don't, right? But I said that I'm going to point the finger at me for negative. I'm going to point the finger at you for positive, and I'm going to sit there and stay there. And I hope you do the same, but I'm going to do it whether you do it for me or not. And for 3 weeks, he didn't reciprocate this. And damn it, it was a long 3 weeks. So you're like trying to stick to what you said you were going to commit to, even though in essence, that is agape love. And what is agape love? Agape love is like a love that is not more, actually, I've got notes in it because I'm a note taker. You know what I mean? So let me go to this. Also, I've had a lot of migraines lately, and my migraine medication makes me a bit dumb in here. Okay, so agape it's a God's love. It's a Greek word which means love in a way that is a matter not as much about emotion, but more about doing things for the benefit of another person. That is having an unselfish concern for others and a willingness to seek the best for others. It does not demand its own way. We live in a world that's me, do what feels good, do it. And I honestly just don't believe that's going to get us everywhere. I think that we actually need to live that way where we are just honoring other people first and foremost. So love, and everybody's heard this, I'm sure at some point, is patient, it's kind, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it's not proud, it does not dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrong, it does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, and love never fails. That is what agape love is.
Corinthians, there she goes.
Yeah. So the crazy thing about that is I was implementing that without even really relating that that's what it was. But let me tell you, it works. So for not reciprocated, right? But I just held firm and I kept doing that. I kept thinking about him first. I kept looking at me. What am I doing wrong? Looking at me for the negative, looking at him for the positive, started praising him like the king that he is, but wasn't exactly, living like. And there's a limit. We don't want to be like, oh, the potential is so good. But, there's a limit, and everybody needs to be careful about that. Like, you were not meant to continue to try to make it work with everybody. That's a decision you have to make. No one can make it for you. But I'm not saying that, oh, if you just do this with everybody, that's some people you do need to walk away from. And that's extremely important to understand, right? But I started doing that, and lo and behold, 3 weeks later,
he arrives.
Dude starts, what do you know? Pointing the finger at himself for negative and pointing at me for positive. And then this is really quickly where the term king and queen came from. And that's what we have nicknames for each other of still to this day. And it's crazy what loving somebody properly will do.
Oh my God, girl. Yes. I'm sorry. I got to jump in because you're getting me so excited. When you come correct in a relationship, it is wild. And I love that you said, don't try and do this with everyone. Because I think honestly, deep down, we always know when it's not right. Even if we're hanging on, even if we're trying to, like you said, see, oh, well, just maybe if I do. No, I mean, for myself, I can speak on that. I've stayed in relationships. I believe in divine timing as well. But when I look back, I'm like, ugh, that you probably stayed there just a little too long. But at the same time, it all happens as and when it should. And then when you come into a relationship where you both show up and you both love each other right, it is wild when you see that difference. And what I love that you're saying, Gypsy, is you've been I don't know if you've been married for 11 years, but together 11 years, right? And you're moving with the ebbs and flows of time, because that's a long time to be with someone. And that you're I'm going to ask you too, when did you start implementing this?
I think it was like a couple years in.
Okay.
Really tumultuous for the first couple of years. It was a couple years in. I believe that's when it was, because we got engaged at around about the 3-year mark, and so it was solid enough at the time that was able to happen. And then we ended up married by, I think it was by 4 years in. So we've been married 7 years now. 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 11. So that does, the math is correct.
Wow.
But because it's so long ago, my migraine medication affects my memory. I'm not always completely sure on timelines.
I have no concept of time at all, so
the worst. And it strikes me to bring this up now, but this is something we talked about on your last appointment at the hair salon. Man, start from the bottom first. I'll tell you, start from the bottom first. Work on that, because the sex is amazing now. Like, I read that the vagina has so many, does it say, is it reflexology points or whatever that hit emotions, hit like,
Yes.
let me tell you, is that a loving, solid, like, I really believe monogamous, because trust me, we invited people into the bedroom. We did all the things. I've never had better sex in my life than what I'm having now, and it's like it just keeps getting better and better and
right.
better. When the man you love is committed to you, you can trust them, that they're not lying. You can, they're that part of their life, their sexual, is 100% for you, 100%
Yes.
saving it for you. I mean, we went through a lot trying to get to this point, but it is amazing. Really, really amazing. And I would love for everybody to be experiencing the kind of sex that I'm experiencing with the right way. Like, get that solid ground first. This day and age, I'm so not a fan of that. I never did it, but it's because I didn't have, I didn't need to. I met people in different ways, and that, and then I've been with my husband for like 11 years. So, but this focusing on the physical first, and then so fast all the time. I'm like, I'm not for it. I'm not for it because it doesn't lead to where it can. And if what you're looking for is, and I also, another unhealthy thing I did for years is I accidentally, because of the abuse that I came from, I equated sex with love. And man,
yeah,
sex is a nice addition to love. It is absolutely not the full capacity of it.
No.
And when you have love the right way, and I'm talking about the romantic kind, because whatever, I'm not even talking about the love God has for us either. I'm just talking about like a romantic love. When it's done the right way, trust me, it's way more encompassing. And now it makes sense to me that your like vagina has all these like different like like pathways neuronically or whatever. I don't know, like like to all these different like points in our brain. When it combines all of those together, and it's mind blowing. It's so bloody.
Yeah. It's wild. To me, sex is such a spiritual thing to me, like, because it's like you're connecting in a way, and like I'm very into the energies and things. Your energies are connecting, like they're like, and what you're saying, it's so true. When you're with like that love, and when you like, it's completely different than anything I've ever had. Like this, it's exactly what you're saying. And it's like sometimes I'm like, I'm seeing colors and all these crazy things. Like it's wild in the best possible way.
Yeah, so it's not the way we ended up beginning. Actually, that's not true, because when we first met, like, he moved in with me. We hadn't even had sex yet. That's like a whole little like we had just met, and then he moved in with me, and nothing physical happened. So we had a bit of time, although it wasn't long, to just build a relationship. And I honestly think like friendship first, then you can get a little bit more romantic, but keep the sex out of it, romantic in the way of getting to know each other. And then, you can move from there. But like, if you build that the right way, it's a lot harder to get to a place that I feel me and my husband are at in our marriage, in our life, in our sex life, and our emotional, like all the things. If you're kind of going at it wrong, you're trying to fill like the top half of the cup first before the bottom. You just can't do it. And
like building a house, you got to build your foundation and then move up. Yeah.
And so, it's just really wild how if you do it right, it's just like such a killer. The strength is there, I believe the reason, like the way, even though it was a short-term thing, the way it happened, we did build it the right way. By and large, I think I probably still would have like changed a few things in that, but it's crazy how that'll get you through. That foundation will get you through the tougher times. And this is another thing that I wanted to touch on that's like related but slightly unrelated, and then I'm rabbit trailing a little bit, but it's something I felt strongly to mention. Is it's just like migraine meds.
My brain does that without the migraine meds, so I totally feel you. I call it a brain stop moment. I'm like, what was I just about to say?
Yeah, it'll come back to me. But yeah, it'll come back to me. But Anyway, the whole relationship has been such a lifeline for me. God's greatest gift to me is my husband. I feel so blessed by him and everything that like he stood through me, like he stood through, and he never left. He just held on, man. Oh yeah, this is what I was gonna say is the concept of like growing apart. This is why we hear this all the time. We just grew apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is an important one that I discovered. Mostly because here's how I discovered it. I noticed with my husband, he had a bit of a pattern going. I didn't want to be victim to that one.
Right.
His first 2 marriages, he was with them for 7 years. 7 years, 7 years. And I was like, oh, that's 7-year itch. Everybody's heard. I was like, that's a real thing. I already know. And you have shown that in your life. I'm not going to be your third 7-year itch.
Nope.
No. So here's the thing about that. So what I did is I said to myself, I ain't going to be victim to it. And here comes into play this concept of like growing apart or growing together. In life, in general, this is with love, this is with art, and those are like really big parts of my life, love and art.
Yeah.
I'm an artist. If you are not growing forward, if you are going backwards, if you think you're just staying still, I'm sorry to break it to you, you're not. If you are not moving forward, you're moving backwards. There's no such thing as standing still. If you think you're standing still, you're just sadly mistaken, and you won't realize it till it's too late, but you're moving backwards. So when pertaining to the concept of, and I have fallen prey to this with my art, and even when I said it was never going to, so it can happen so easily. So if people have grown apart, and this is going to come across harsh, but it is just, I believe, the truth. People have done so intentionally. Now, it may have been accidentally intentionally, but it's intentionally. Why? Because they didn't intentionally grow forward. What does it take to intentionally grow forward? Well, a lot of things. You have to like, first of all, we made time really, really important. Like Sundays were the only days we had off up until like a year and a bit ago, year and a half ago. And those I demanded. Those are our days. Like we were involved in so much stuff, but by and large, if we couldn't be together on that day doing whatever things we were asked to do or doing, because we were involved in a lot of different artistic avenues, and especially in Calgary when we lived there, we made that sacred. We had to be together that day. We also, and it was intentional, we also joined each other, and that doesn't have to be for every single thing, no, but like we joined each other on each other's paths. Now, whether that was a path of or a path of like interest, and I'll say the path of interest, the way that worked for us is my husband wanted to my husband wanted to be involved in financial services.
Yeah.
He's on the side. He's he does investments and insurance.
That's awesome.
With that, I didn't get my license, but I did all the studying to do so, and we started doing that together because that was going to take up a lot of time of his. And so now, the concept of like, we must get past this here. We must together, intentionally grow together so that we don't accidentally intentionally grow apart. I joined him in that. I didn't really have any interest in it initially, but I created an interest. And then spiritually speaking, another example is that like, I mean, he was the one that first suggested we should try finding a church in Vancouver here. I was like, what? but like, I really was seeing, these people aren't the crazy Christians or the evil Christians. Not that they're perfect, and they definitely have triggered a lot of my stuff the past year, and that's been a whole nother thing that I've had to go through. Again, I'm not throwing out the chicken because of the flood that throw eggs, but I really wanted and needed that, and for me, I'm unfortunately balanced, and me aren't friends. Never have been. So I kind of went into that full on and extreme leading up to my freedom story, and dude joined me. He was like, but every time I said I want to go do this, I want to go to this event and I want to go to that event, he joined me. it wasn't his favorite thing in the world, until, now it's a little bit different because he really saw what God has done, and he has his own strong and growing relationship with God now. But we intentionally grew together, because if you are just hoping that's going to happen, if you're hoping you're going to have longevity in your relationship, more than likely it ain't going to happen. You have to actually work for that. And it
absolutely
takes intentionally building those interests and spiritual side, healing and activities. It takes the common bit. And so we blew past that 7-year itch. For me, that was 4 years ago. And then I thought, I'm going to give this another go. I want to blow past the 7 married years, which we just celebrated wedding anniversary in April.
Yay!
And again, it's just growing and strengthening, and the sex from it, again, I'm like, it's just
mind blowing.
So yeah. And here's another concept that me and I don't want to say too much about who, so I'll just leave it at a friend of mine so that nobody knows who. But it's another concept we're talking about, is that if sex isn't happening, I hate to break it to you. Again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but something's wrong, very wrong.
Gypsy keeps it real, guys.
Yeah, I just, and you can agree with what I'm saying or not. And I think that it's important that we all respect each other's opinion, whether we agree or don't agree. If you're DM me and say, I don't agree with you, and I'll have the open conversation. Like, I think
that's so key. This is how we learn, like, because we're not all correct. We don't know everything. I love learning new things. So I think it's great.
And one of the marriages that I think is like it's one of my pastor's marriages. Actually, there's probably 2 or 3 of them, but one of the things that he always talks about is, like, we still don't agree on certain subject matters. We keep going back to the drawing board and talking about them, but we still are very passionately disagree on these things. Does it mean that we can't be married? Does it mean we can't be? So I just really believe if we disagree, it doesn't mean we can't be friends. We have
exactly.
Last 2 years, we really lost that. Like, we're all humans. We can disagree. You may like the color, green, and I may like the color blue, but we can still be friends. Newsflash, we can still be friends.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just really feel like you can have, if there's no sex, something's wrong. Something's wrong. I mean, you can use all the excuses about the reasons why. I mean, unless you're like physically, you've got cancer and it hurts to, like,
right.
Whatever, but like, and this is important because it's it was created to be part of the glue that bonds it. Because when you talk about how you believe it's absolutely it's spiritual. You have a connection with every single person you have sex with, and that should alarm some of us. You know what I mean? That alarm some of us, because do you want to take on their spiritual,
their energy? Yeah.
Be careful who you allow into that spot in your life, because you're taking that stuff on. And so if you're not having sex, that is a problem. And again, if you think you're just, in limbo with it, you're not. You're unfortunately moving backwards, and it will inevitably, and even if it's an accidentally, it's still by and large intentionally, because we either intentionally grow or we intentionally just float. And it takes intention. So the thing about sex is this: is it all always like that huge buffet? I relate to it with food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's always like amazing, pretty much always, right? Like literally mind blowing. But to get to that point, it took just like, hey, you when you're do we remember every single meal that we ever had? No. And some of it was like gross, but I'm starving and I need to eat right now, and so I'm just gonna whatever. But we do remember these, like a meal. I had like this amazing buffet. I went to this like fine dining.
That's right.
Of me cooked for me, and it was like so good, and so. But you don't quit eating just because it's not the perfect, like, oh, this was like,
Yes.
You eat because you need physical nourishment. I believe that sex is nourishment for a marriage, and it's very, very important. So
I agree. I think it's so important for me. Like, I know I think for everyone, but and I think what you're speaking on too, it reminded me of the five love languages, like when you were saying about what you and your husband do. And I was like, that's like it literally, I was like, that's it. And, physical touch for me is like number one, time and touch, number one. Some people, maybe they prefer acts of service more so than that, but it still doesn't mean that you don't need those five basic things to have a fulfilled life. Because even though, let's say, acts of service is lower on the totem pole for me, it doesn't mean I don't need it. It just maybe isn't as important for me in the long run.
Yeah. And that's actually a cool thing to bring up. People listening, if you haven't ever heard of that, there's a whole book on it.
Yeah.
So if you're not into reading like a whole book, you can just like Google or whatever, and there's like a little bit cliff notes, but everybody needs all five. You're right. And everybody has a one or two or three that are like top.
Yeah.
And where some of this discord starts happening in relationships is I'm doing my damnness to show you love, and I'm showing you love in the way I need it.
Yes.
They're top though.
You have to know your partners as well as your own, so you can come together and then love each other. I mean, bonus if you both have the same, great. But if you don't, you have to learn that and navigate that accordingly.
Yeah. So maybe even like I recommend, and I did this with Iron many, many years ago. That's my husband's name. And I just asked him, here's these five things, and here's the description of them. What would you say most to least important to you? So I could when I am trying to love him and show him love, that I'm doing it in the way that he understands.
Yes, that he receives.
To him in the way he receives it, instead of doing it opposite, because there can be so much discord in a relationship when both people are trying their hardest, but they're hitting the wrong nail. They're just hitting the wrong button. They're
exactly.
And we're like, he doesn't do this and she doesn't do that. It's like, but I'm doing this and I'm doing, but I don't really care as much about that.
Yeah.
So, digging into that with your partner, I really highly recommend it. That's
Me too.
Very, very huge. It's really.
And there's even a quiz online. It's super easy, and you can get to the end and you kind of can gauge it, and it'll even show I don't know if they do it in percentages or how I can't remember now, but it lists them in order, and obviously use your own human discernment as well, because you can look at things. But really interesting, and it seems so basic, but it all starts again, coming back to what Gypsy said, the foundation, the basics. You have to have the basics, and then it flourishes. It's like planting a pretty flower. Needs the soil, needs all the love, and then it can bloom.
100%. Yeah, and another thing that's kind of makes me think, it triggers this thought is, I would say this is for personal. I would do this for personal and for relationship, but I often ask clients over the years who have been together a very long time, who've been married a really long time, what's the secret? And there's some obvious ones that people say, love, respect, blah, 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 whatever. Truth, honesty, all the stuff. But this one gentleman many, many, many years ago, way near the beginning of my career, he said to me, and this was, you got to remember, back in those days in 2001, this was a more shocking, and I was down with it. He said, I go to therapy before it gets to be a big thing. I can't even tell you how many times I've been to therapy with my wife. We go and we book an appointment when something's really small, and we work through it before it becomes something big. Again, that's going to be an intentionally growing together too, because I tried to go to therapy with my first two husbands when it was already, my first husband, I literally should have, he was one of those abuse, I should have never even, it's like, get out, go, there's no saving this.
Yeah.
Go. But and both times they were right checked out. So it was too late to hit that point, right?
That's right.
Grow together, hit the things when they're small. And it makes me think of this because I went to therapy with my husband, Iron. This would have been probably within the first year we were together. And the reason why this can be so amazing, because still a lot of men these days are like, therapy, no, we're still working on this becoming something where it's like, no, this isn't a negative thing. Just word it to them like a mediator. Don't call them a therapist.
Yeah.
A shrink. Don't call them a counselor. Say a mediator. And why is that important? I'll just tell you one short little story. We were in the therapist's office, right? And he was trying to work through a couple things with us. And so he said, asked me a question, and then I talked. And then he said, now Iron, respond, and you say something. And then after Iron finished saying something in response to what I said, the therapist said, now, Gypsy, what did you hear him say? And I repeated what I heard. He said, no, I really don't think that's what he said. And Iron's like, yeah, that's not at all what I said. So the concept of this communication imbalance that can happen so easily.
So easily.
It's trained and educated to help in a loving, gentle, kind way. Be a mediator. Again, we don't have to call it a counselor or a therapist, but be a mediator so that you can hear what your partner is saying. They can hear what, and something very profound happened within the same sessions. It wasn't probably the same exact one, but for me, I have huge abandonment issues, whereas my husband has severe adult ADHD. So if you walk out on me, this is the worst thing you can do. If you walk out on me and leave the situation, all those abandonment things are triggered again, right? And he knew and learned that if he's starting to get ramped up in a conversation, he must leave. He was told with ADHD, you leave because otherwise it can go like zero.
Escalates. Yeah.
But, and people still need to do what they need to do, but maybe, you need to work through like how that's going to look and pre-plan when we get in an argument, how are we going to approach it? So, cause maybe you need to leave the conversation, to make sure you don't,
to cool down or to whatever. Yeah, for sure.
But after that meeting, when my therapist explained to my husband what abandonment, what him leaving does to me, my husband didn't understand. He didn't know. From that day on, in an argument, I remember 2 times. The first 2 times that happened, he put his coat on. I said, oh, here we go again. He's going to leave. He put his coat on, and then he sat down in a different room and did not leave. And then he never.
Oh, wow.
No, right? So therapy can help you guys. I mean, the fact that I saw him put his coat on and he stayed, I think that was almost in some ways better than if he just hadn't put the coat, because I knew he wants to leave. He knows he but he just stayed.
Oh, I love that. He learned.
and yeah, so I mean, just never, and that's another thing to longevity, and really do not give up on each other. So, like, I mean, again, you got to assess the situation. Is this full blown abuse? Like, no.
Absolutely.
But how do you get longevity? Because life ain't easy, dude. We went through some tough stuff, and we just made a decision early on around about those days, with the therapy in the beginning. And again, the first couple years was super tumultuous, but we made a commitment. We were not going to give up. We were just going
I love that.
Right. So
you're going to grow together. I love that.
Yeah. And not having that, because again, it was a bit of a saving grace. We'd already had 2 failed marriages. Like, we're not doing this a third freaking time. So just made that commitment. We're going to figure it out. And yes, it does take that kind of agape love where you're thinking of them first in all the ways. It sounds opposite to what the world is preaching in so many different ways today, but like that is what it takes. It does take thinking of them first and doing what, as long as the other person is also doing the same, it is not healthy or easy or work and whatever if 2 people aren't doing the same. So find you somebody that's going to agape love you back. You can't be the only one doing, because that is just going to turn into a form of emotional abuse. And
100%.
Yeah,
because you have to be like fulfilled. You're on your, like we said, make sure you're fulfilled on your own, and then you can truly honor your partner and give them that and like work together. And like we said, you're not always going to agree. It's not like that. But when you're choosing each other, I think it comes to you choose each other every day. Like, that makes such a difference.
Yeah, you just have to say, no, I'm not going there, because that is not an option for me. I'm going to do what it takes to make that. Water your own grass. Don't be looking at people's lawns. The grass is not greener. It's green where you walk. You know who wrote that lyric? Justin Bieber. But I love that lyric. The grass.
I love Justin Bieber.
I do too. I just think, grass is green where you water it. And ever since he came out with that lyric, which I believe was is she around about the same time as the beginning of our relationship? I'm like,
oh, wow.
watering my own grass. I'm not looking at the other grass, because we bring our own problems to that other grass. And trust me, that other grass has its own problems it's going to bring to you. So
Yeah.
unless abuse or whatever, just water your own grass. But here comes into play this other concept of like, don't rush into things. Then listen to people, find out who they are before you make a decision to like be involved with them romantically or sexually. If they show you who they are, believe them. Oprah said that
Let's
one.
say that one more time for the people in the back, because yes.
Yeah, who they are, believe them. If they show you there's somebody that's not going to give you that same thing that you know you want to give, that you want that longevity, that you want that commitment, that you're going to try all the time and not quit trying, and you're going to, and they're not, and you see their actions speak louder than words, they're not going to give you that back. Believe them then, and get out.
Mm-hmm.
And don't go there romantically and sexually with the relationship until you can assess that. And that can take some time, because we get all like, oh, God, he makes me feel sexy. It's like so romantic. They're all like that at the beginning. That's why I hear these girls talking about this. I'm like, yeah, they're all like that at the beginning. They ain't gonna come across like an asshole in the first 2 seconds, because then you'll just walk. Everybody's like putting on their good little front. Wait until you can see who they are in different situations. Look at how they're dealing with things in life, and don't make that choice until you know, because then you know who they are saying they are, and you must believe them and not think, oh, well, he'll change, or oh, he'll do that. No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so true. You can't, like, don't try and change people. People can grow, but they have to want to do it themselves. Like, you cannot make someone grow. I've learned that the hard way too.
Yeah. So I feel like
that was amazing. You dropped so much knowledge. I loved it. That was so awesome.
4 years to gain it. That's why. But yeah, there's many aspects to my life, many rabbit trails. But as I was contemplating, thinking, and praying, I felt like these were the two main ones. And I felt they were very in line with kind of what you're doing in your podcast, which, by the way, I'm so proud.
Oh, thank you.
I think you're so cool. So those are like the main ones. And unless you have any other questions, I feel like
this is amazing.
Do
you have any final words of wisdom? I'll throw that out. You dropped a lot, so it's okay if you don't. But if you have anything else, like, we'd love to hear it.
There's many words of wisdom, and how do you come up with just one? I feel like one that I am going to share was battling with the whole chicken and egg thing, but I left that as part of the whole concept of what I was talking about, and I'll stick with this as my final words of wisdom. In life, in the relationship that you're choosing, in your healing, try your hardest and never give up. That's what I say. We created, me and my husband, this phrase, try harder. We created that in that first couple years. And I think it was all around that kind of timing, again, with the therapy and with the like king and queen situation. We just said, we're just going to keep trying harder. If your hardest didn't work that day, get up the next day and try harder still. If that didn't cut it, if that didn't make it, get up the next day and try even harder still. Just do not quit trying in life. Just keep trying. And this can be a tough one for somebody that's dealing with like depression and trying to heal from trauma and stuff like that. But trust me, don't go into a phase of your life that's just band-aiding it, or just you're running from it, or you're trying to medicate it. Face it and just keep trying. Try a different, if you're banging your head against the same wall, try a different wall. Hey, I tried going to God's healing instead of all these other, like bang your head against a different wall. Try that one instead. I felt like I was wandering around a dark room, and that's how it was either underground in water, caged and chained, or like in life, I felt like I was wandering around a dark room, and people were like talking as if I should know I didn't know where the light was. I didn't know openings were, and I'm just like like this. But I just didn't quit trying, and I guess I was born with that fighter spirit. I didn't quit trying, and I began to try harder and harder. Still, I tried different walls, different doors, different things. And finally, God flicked that freaking switch for me, and things got so much better for me after. But yes, that was a phrase we both came up with: try harder. and and I will add, because this is an important bit, if you tried hard, your hardest, you dug the deepest you have, because that was your capacity or your wherewithal that day, and it wasn't enough, go have your cry. There's 2 points to this. Go have your
Yep.
cry. Not saying just get up and keep going like, oh, like we're not robots. Go have your cry, okay? Have your moment. Set your timer. How long? Am I going to give myself a week for this? Am I going to give myself like 30 minutes for this? Go have your cry in your like moment to like regroup.
Yep.
And just keep going and try harder still. Don't quit. So dig deep and keep going. And we have to remember that we only have the capacity we have. Some days we may have less capacity than other days.
That's
but
right.
Try with the capacity you have on that day. You try the hardest you can in all of these different matters of life, and you will get growth. It may not seem like it for a while, but you will.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy, continue trying, continue seeking healing, continue to rid yourself of the things that are trying to self-medicate those, to bury them. Trust me, you try to bury trauma, you try to bury issues, they come out in these other little
Oh
ways.
yeah, big time. I'm like, it's gonna bite you in the ass eventually. You have to deal with it. Like that's how I felt about it, because I was like, well, all right, here we go.
Just keep going. Don't quit. Don't lose hope. I'm here to tell people, especially people, God, I have a heart for them. People that are really struggling with, feeling suicidal, feeling so depressed, and having so much anxiety, and being filled with hate, and having had so many people do so much harm, and not wanting, just wanting to keep people away. And I'm a literal life testimony to there is light on the other side. Don't quit. Just keep going. Hey, you need somebody? DM me, man. I would love to do anything. Just be that support. If you don't have a support, pick me. I'm over here.
Where are the tissues right now? Because you're making me cry. Oh my God.
Yeah, like that's how I feel, right? And I think that's important. So, but I just want to like tell people, if you're struggling, just don't quit. If I can do it, you can do it. I just know that. And if it took me 35, 40 years to get where I am and still growing, I mean, if it took you 70, that's okay too. I just had a woman respond to me because of my other, and it made me feel so emotional. I had a woman respond to me because of my other podcast, and she's in her early, I think she's 70, just 70. And she's like, oh my goodness, like I had this moment with other people, and then I listened to your podcast, and like I found like this new deeper level of healing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what age you are. Just keep trying and keep going, and don't give up. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God.
A full on like mini preach.
I loved that. I'm here for it. Literally, you got me with the feels. I felt that through my whole body. That was amazing. And I was going to say, I was like, Gypsy's literally living proof. Like, and that's why we share these stories, because we are not alone. Like, no matter what your circumstance, there is someone who can be there for you and can be your light and show you that it can get better, and just try harder and don't give up. I fucking love that. Like, it's just, that's the tea, guys. Like, that's what's up. Oh my God. Also, I wanted to make sure we plugged in your social media if anyone wants to connect with you. So how can they reach you?
Okay, so I think a great place to reach me is at Hair by Gypsy Kiss. So just literally Hair by Gypsy Kiss. It's a hair, B-Y, hair by. Spelled Gypsy, and then Kiss, Kiss, Hair by Gypsy Kiss.
Perfect.
You can DM me on there. You will never be bothering me. I have a huge heart for anyone and everyone. And if you have any questions, if you want a link to that other podcast, which like I did not really cross over much information between these two, again, because I feel like the audience was slightly different depending. But if you want to hear more about my freedom story and how I got freed from all those things, I would love to send that to you if you have any. I don't agree with you on what you said. Hey, let's have that chat. I don't mind. We can agree, disagree, and still be friends. If you need anything, if you're like, I don't have anyone, again, pick me and DM me. You'll never be bothering me.
Oh my God, I love that so much. Thank you so much for being so open and raw and vulnerable with us. I really do appreciate it. I could feel it all, like even through the screen, we're still on each other's level. Like I could feel your energy, and I just really appreciate you taking the time to share with us. Like it really means a lot to me, and I know the audience as well. They're going to love it and resonate. So thank you.
Well, thank you, because it was literally my pleasure. It's all my pleasure to share my story, because I believe that God wrote me a story that helps other people, and that was always one of my goals, is to be able to be a help to other people. And again, I'm so proud of you. Thank you. I feel blessed that you asked me to and I feel blessed to if there anything that we talked about today is a help to people, for me, that's just a huge blessing. It's truly my pleasure. Again, I'm so proud of you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. I'm like, we're going to have a part 2, part 3, part 4 conversation on here, because there's so much and it's so beautiful and amazing.
All right, everybody.
Awesome. Yes,
Great...
thank you so much. So that's tea time for today, everyone. If you loved what Gypsy was saying, feel free to reach out. I'll be tagging her everywhere. Everything will be linked, so there'll be no problem. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button. It'll help us grow our beautiful community. If you're listening to this via podcast, leave a rating, give us a review, and that's it. I hope everyone has an amazing day, night, whatever time it is, and wishing you love and light as always.